Hello and welcome to the 2021 documentary screenings. Now normally we would be in here experiencing this event in a communal atmosphere, in theater, with a real audience, but this is not a normal year. Even though this isn't a typical year in most fashions, we are going to have an excellent premiere for you tonight, and you will enjoy it from the comfort of your own couch. Let me introduce myself. My name is Dan McCoskey, and for the last several months I've had the pleasure of working with these 9 students to help them make their very professional and engaging films. Making a documentary is something that's extremely challenging. You have to make a visually interesting piece that says something about a subject or a person or an issue, but you also have to find ways to get the audience invested in it. How do you do that when there's a global pandemic going on? Many skills were used in this particular semester to get students thinking in creative ways on how to create something when they don't have access to all the regular tools. Lots of students had to learn how to be interesting and engaging over the internet and recording interviews through Teams and Zoom and platforms like that. I'm extremely proud of the work that they did. We have an incredibly varied show for you, ranging from sort of lighthearted and fun to very serious, historical to current, and things that will really excite you, I think. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I will say a little bit about each film and each filmmaker as we get started. And I also wanted to ask you, even though you are at home, to try to minimize your distractions and give our students the respect that they deserve. So thank you so much, and have a great time enjoying these films. First up tonight, we have first-time filmmaker Molly Ucia. I think you will be amazed when you watch this movie and realize that she had never edited a movie before. This documentary is a personal project for her sister, and also stresses the importance of travel. We hope you enjoy it.
They brought in a virologist, they had a student studying in another city in Italy come in, they had our principal of the school over there, and they talked to us about the fact that you're not going to be sent home. There's viruses every year and it's not a big deal. This is completely normal, and they told us not to worry, so that was what we did. We didn't worry. I am Emily Ucia, and I am a 4th year architecture student at Kent State University. Whenever I was originally looking at colleges, I was really interested in study abroad opportunities. So Kent State offered a program to go to Florence during your 2nd semester of your junior year, and I definitely wanted to take advantage of that.
My name is Jaleese Peebles. I am studying architectural studies and also a minor in art history. Living in Florence, Italy was stellar. It was absolutely wonderful, I'm not gonna lie.
My name is Chloe Froning, and I'm studying architecture at Kent State. Thinking about living abroad was pretty scary just because it wasn't a bike ride home again. It was a whole plane ticket. Once I became used to it, I absolutely loved it.
It was simultaneously nostalgic, even though I'd never been there before, because you would think it represented a simpler way of living.
Everything was so much more relaxed, and even the walking through the city, it just was almost relaxing to be in a new place and independent.
You just walk out of the door and it's a completely different world. It's crazy. I am Sarah Spalding, and I'm studying architecture. My grandparents are Italian. They're just very warm, very tough, but very welcoming.
The Italian culture was definitely welcoming and warm.
I would say Italian culture is definitely more relaxed and slow-paced, but also passionate.
It is heartfelt to the nth power. It was always just we're happy to be here, and we're happy to eat our good food, and we're happy to enjoy our old architecture while going to Zara. It was just great. I absolutely loved it, and I would go back in a heartbeat.
They are very proud of their city, and they're proud to like share their city with us.
It was the center of architecture, art, culture, food. It just had everything set up in it, and it was like you couldn't not take away good things and helpful things for your education.
They wanted to teach us Italy. They wanted us to get involved. They wanted us to speak Italian. They wanted us to like be completely immersed in their city and their culture.
I really appreciated feeling welcome within that environment, because I think that was one thing I was worried about, was would they be like all these, American study abroad students taking up the culture and just taking up Italy. But it felt very different within Florence. It felt like they appreciated us being there.
I think towards the end, once they realized we were like leaving and they were sending us all home, they were really wanted us to stay. So even though we might not see it at first from the exterior, they are completely warm and they want you to be there.
We're here in Pennsylvania and Butler County and in this area of the world. And it's wonderful, it's comfortable, it's a great place to live, but this, there's so much more out there in the world. There are so many other places that people are from, and so many other perspectives and values that other people hold.
I mean, you never know where you could live someday, and having those experiences might change the whole course of your life. So I think it's very important for out of respect, out of just being in awe of how big the world is, to be able to travel in your lifetime.
Un tango italiano. A couple of our friends actually got to climb up Pisa, and they said it almost felt like you were always going up, but it felt at some points that you were actually going down to the stairs or going up.
It was really neat to see the Leaning Tower, but that was pretty much all that was in Pisa.
The thing that was most exciting about my first trip was figuring out public transportation.
That was our first time taking a train and going into the Santa Maria Novella train station in Florence. And it was a good experience, but of course we were all kind of worried to take our first train.
It was very scary at first, because it's I don't know where I'm going, where do I put my ticket, nobody speaks English, how do I get around this place? But once you figure it out, it's so straightforward. Going from Florence, where the culture was very rich, to Pisa, where the culture is just tourists, it was nice to see you for an hour, and then I wanted to go someplace that felt a lot more and meant a lot more.
When I was communicating with my family back home, I had told them I was going to Pisa, and so we talked maybe once or twice a week if we could, and the time difference being 6 hours apart was kind of hard to coordinate. But so the next time I talked to them, I was like, hey, I'm going to Paris this weekend.
J'ai perdu ma tête dans la rue Saint-Honoré. J'ai cherché ça et là, je ne l'ai pas trouvé. Dis-moi.
Not only did we take our first train to Pisa, but then we were taking our first flight out of the country and going to one of the largest airports in all of Europe, which is in Paris. And we actually stayed pretty close to the Eiffel Tower.
It was incredible. And when we got out and saw the Eiffel Tower for the first time, shed a little tear. I was what the heck is that? It was incredible.
So we didn't end up climbing the Eiffel Tower, but we did climb the Arc de Triomphe.
It's just another thing you just look at and you're I don't understand how that was made. It's a constant surreal moment. It's surrounded by this massive roundabout, and I don't know how we didn't see more car crashes. So we went under the road, we popped up, and there's just these carvings in it, and just the closer you get, the more just magnificent it becomes. You get to the top, and it was kind of a foggy day, and you just got a whole panorama of the city.
J'ai perdu mes bras sur la place de l'opéra. Je ne les ai pas trouvés. J'ai cherché ça et là, dis-moi.
We went and saw the Notre Dame, which actually had all of the, like it was all blocked off because of the fire. And I've actually had the opportunity to go to Paris before and see it before the fire happened. So it was sad to have to compare that experience from the one before, but it's still like a beautiful structure and like an architectural landmark. Actually, my mother made Sarah a hat.
Oh, my flame hat. It was red velvet and it has like little bejeweled little flames on it.
But we didn't realize till after we took our pictures in front of Notre Dame that you probably shouldn't wear like a fire hat.
Poor judgment, poor taste on my end, I guess. So I mean, it was funny. It was like a silly little moment.
The Louvre is just like huge.
You gotta see the Mona Lisa, which everyone's always astounded by how small it was, and yes, same, I was astounded by how small it was. On the other side was the Last Supper, which, wow. It is like, the people are life-sized in it, and like, the painting is just massive. It is massive. I don't know how, again, I don't understand like how someone made that. It was just incredible.
Just being embraced in all of that art and being in like the Louvre is something I hopefully everybody can experience someday.
That was really fun to watch, and like just feeling that type of energy in like an ancient city too was just, there was just something really special about it.
Come belle c'è la luna, brilla strette, strette come butto, belle fasteggiare, sotto cielo di Roma.
You can walk basically anywhere in Florence, but like you get to Rome and it is huge. It is so big.
We got to see the Roman Forum, we got to see the Colosseum, we got to see Pantheon.
Just to fathom how they made a dome that size at that time, and just getting that described to us just like in a setting of like a class was amazing to actually like physically see.
I think the one thing I liked most about Rome was it felt like around every corner was a huge important piece of architecture.
Though there's grinning and mandolining in sunny Italy, the beginning has just begun when the sun goes down.
You're in Rome experiencing this crazy thing and we're just walking around like normal. So Rome was my favorite experience, but also I wish I got a little bit more time to take it all in.
Rome is just amazing in all senses of the word, because it is so hyped up too, but it really has so much history.
All of us Steeler fans got together and we went to this little Steeler bar. That's this famous Steeler bar in Rome.
Yeah, baby. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, baby. Oh.
It's just a really fun little place to go and a highlight of Rome.
Every day.
One of the pasta restaurants that was right across the street from our apartment, which turned out to be the best pasta I had in like all of Italy. It was just this little tiny hole-in-the-wall shop, and it was like all like freshly made pasta. This was all the shirts that they wore inside the restaurant, and it was in the Santo Spirito Piazza, but They actually gave those all to us for free because it was on one of our final days in Florence, and it was purely like American students in there. Just everybody was eating and having these big, wonderful meals in their last days.
The final, we call it the Last Supper, where we got the steak. I kept the card because I want to take my parents there someday. But they had like the classic Florentine steak. It was a little terrifying, but like you cut into it and it got scary when you cut into it because it was like, it looked rare almost. But it just like melted in your mouth. I don't know what they did to that, but it was like a different type of like culinary experience, and just the people and the wine they'd bring out and the whole like aperitivo beforehand was just amazing. I feel like that was the most authentic experience.
I think I took some of my favorite pictures in Rome as well, and Naples. Naples had a lot of very scenic everything. On the first day there, we went to a castle by the waterfront, and of course by the water, like, can't get better than that.
Naples was a completely different place to visit than the rest of the ones that we had gone to because it's a coastal city.
And it was nice to just take our time, enjoy the environment. I think Naples by far was my favorite experience. My favorite coffee and pizza was in Naples. The pizza shop we went to, hands down, was my favorite experience. I think on the last day there, we went to Naples Duomo. There was one room that like all the windows were yellow, so the whole room was glowing in this yellow atmosphere, and it was absolutely beautiful just to be able to walk in there and experience this glowing cathedral that felt, I don't know, just so ingrained within Naples as such a part of their culture. It felt like there was locals in there, and just the architecture work and the environment was indescribable to walk in and experience that. At that point in time, I thought I was like desensitized to cathedrals in general because we had experienced so many. And as soon as I walked in, I was like, wait, forget it. This is awesome.
It was just something completely different that we hadn't experienced yet, and just like added to the feeling that there's so much that you could see. It was a really just unique experience in comparison to the other places we visited.
Mount Vesuvius was a hard hike. It was a really hard hike up there. It was worth it though, to be up on the top of Mount Vesuvius looking in and then looking down at Pompeii. It was 100% worth the hike up there. Pompeii was absolutely ginormous.
It didn't occur to me how large of an area it would take up, but when you think of it, it is a city. So it was huge.
By the time we had got through the half or the parts that we really wanted to see, I was so burnt out. I could not walk any further, especially after climbing Mount Vesuvius.
Seeing that art, like just where it was originally painted, it's not like it was moved or relocated to a museum. Like that is the original spot that it was and has stayed all of this time, which was also unique, like facet of seeing another part of art of Italy. So, like you're surrounded by culture and art and music, and the Uffizi Gallery had all of this artwork and sculptures and everything. The Uffizi, that was in our final days. virologist. They had a student studying in another city in Italy come in. They had our principal of the school over there, and they told us not to worry. So that was what we did. We didn't worry.
I had a feeling it was coming. That night actually just feels like a movie.
Italy, which has seen the worst outbreak in Europe, at least 322 people have caught the new coronavirus.
The authorities have said that the number of cases of coronavirus here in Italy has risen to 374.
Italy has now surpassed China in the number of COVID-19 related deaths.
Officials at the University of Illinois in Loyola to call for students studying in Italy to return home.
There's more than 200 Kent State University students studying abroad to return home, some of them arriving into Cleveland Hopkins Airport early this morning.
That was such big news. Students studying abroad are being evacuated from Italy. I got in contact with a couple people that wanted to do an interview with me.
Chloe Froning enjoying her studies in Italy until this weekend.
Students are just more upset at the situation. A lot of them are angry and upset that they put so much money into the study abroad program and now they're being sent home.
I felt devastated when I found out I was going home. Mostly, a lot of it was because I had spent a lot of time, money, effort, tears, everything to get there. But also because I felt like I had not learned all that I could have learned yet.
As a teacher, I am constantly wanting to learn new things. The idea of traveling is exploring, and exploring is learning. Traveling has affected me just mostly with curiosity of the world.
As you go to other places and meet other people and learn about other cultures, you kind of look at yourself and you're like, hey, I could be doing better, or I could be doing this differently.
And it makes you more just empathetic towards other people.
Teaching students empathy and flexibility and just even thinking in different ways, that's not something that you can directly teach people very well. I think it's very important to share travel experiences with other people who might not feel confident in traveling.
It is important to share with people. I feel like more so the experiences and what you learned, but not so much the places.
It's not just that I went to the cathedral, it's the experience of the cathedral in general. It's the feeling that it gave me, it's the environment that it was encompassed in.
People do hold it as a trophy, and everyone's like, oh, I want to travel, I want to do this so bad. But they just do it to get somewhere that someone else has been. And they don't really get to experience it and see it for what it truly is.
Something that you can look at on your computer when you're planning your travel, and then the feeling that you get when you're standing there experiencing that in person. If you're looking at the Alps, and then a couple months later you're standing in the Alps and looking at the view, it's just something that you can't get from just looking at things and looking at pictures or videos or things on TV.
To try and travel again, I might be scary for some people. We've gotten over these kind of diseases and things before, so I think people might be scared in the beginning, but I don't think that they'll be scared forever now.
I don't think that changes my hunger for traveling again.
I feel like if anything, I made it stronger. I have an even grown passion to travel. It kind of more so fed that drive, I feel like, within both of us, just to go see the world even more. And it's nice to have now some knowledge of how it works, so next time we could pick up where we left off and just go out and running and really get the full experience over there.
So you would recommend traveling?
Absolutely. I would recommend traveling for sure.
And you can kill the young ones?
to tell you goodbye, and I hope to see you very soon in Florence again. And see you.
Next up is Justin Rickard and his film on the stock market. And Justin made the choice to actually be on camera and use his really good commanding voice and write a really great script to go along with this. Different technique, something that a lot of people don't like to do for a documentary, and Justin did an excellent job with it. So let's take a look.
What is the stock market? It sounds confusing, but really it's quite simple. Basically, you purchase a stock or a share of any company. You then become a shareholder of that company. You can buy as many stocks as you want and sell whenever you want. The stock price of companies fluctuate constantly. They'll either go up or down, so you can sell it when the stock goes up and make a profit. If you hold on to your stock, certain companies pay dividends. For example, every quarter that you own one Apple share, you will be paid 82 cents, since you are technically a partial owner of the company. That's just a quick overview of the stock market. Obviously, there's a lot more that goes into it that I don't quite have the time to get into. I had the chance to sit down with an entrepreneur who's a perfect example of why young adults should get into investing at an early age.
My name is Zach Bergstresser. I trade stocks. Yes, I am currently 76% above average for the traditional index trading.
What does that mean? Well, I asked Zach how he was doing in the stock market, and he said he's 76% above the traditional index. Basically, at the age of 18, he is making 76% more than the average person does in the stock market, and he's only 18.
When you buy and sell stocks, there is a risk to it because it's almost like gambling. If you put all your money into a slot machine, you could win some, you could lose some. You can set stop losses to help with the amount you would lose if it dips down. But I won't recommend it to everyone. I would make sure they know what they're doing and do research into what they want to buy.
If I wanted to get into the stock market, is it easy?
Not necessarily. Trading stocks can come with a risk. You need to know a lot about the company and do a lot of research, and unless you understand that, I won't recommend it. The stock market impacts my life because it helps me pay for things that my normal job doesn't always cover. Like, I can go out with friends more and have that pay for it instead of it coming out of my job salary. I like to buy the EV sector, which is electric vehicles such as Tesla, FSR, NIO, and other companies like that. Also recently, weed stocks have been doing well.
Wait, you can invest in weed? Well, yeah. There are companies that sell recreational marijuana, and because recreational marijuana is becoming more legal in more states, the stock value of those companies are going up.
My investing strategy is buying and selling swing trades. So as of now, I'm in 9 different companies, such as Tesla, FSR, and other stocks like that. And I'm waiting for a certain price target to hit, then I'm going to sell it, then look into new stocks to buy with the capital I gain. I've made a substantial profit from what I do, and I'm glad I do it. It's a great second stream of income. COVID-19 has affected trading stocks because the stock market is a lot more volatile than it has been. You can get new news coming out and it would either shoot up the stocks or it can crush them. Every time there's an election, stocks are a bit finicky because there's a new change in government. So some go up, some go down. It all depends on what sector you're talking about. I keep track of my stocks through my Schwab account, and I also look at Yahoo Finance and Seeking Alpha, which are great tools to help me manage my stocks. Schwab account is my investing account. They're the company that I manage with, and they allow me to buy and sell the stocks that I'm interested in. The stock market's a great thing to get into. It's a great second stream of income, and it allows you more freedom with the life you want to live. I'd say I spend about 10 to 15 hours a week on looking into stocks because it always changes. There's always new news coming out, and it's a very hands-on thing. I'm always going to stay into stocks. I'm just going to broaden my investing portfolio by having rental properties and do some real estate stuff as well. Make sure you do your research ahead of time. Don't jump into something you don't know a lot about, but it's a great way to broaden your incomes.
We got a lot of great info from Zach about the stock market and why he invests. I also got to interview a teacher at Seneca Valley who teaches personal finance. I asked her a lot of questions about why young adults should start investing.
Hi, my name is Mrs. Kafalis. I teach personal finance and pre-calc trigonometry. I think that young adults should definitely get involved with investing in a young age. They have a lot of things that older adults don't have, and one important asset that young adults have is time. To invest money, there is a time factor. It's not about getting rich quick. It's about making wise decisions, cutting back on our spending so that we have extra money in our budget to invest. But it also takes time. It takes maybe a couple decades of perseverance and diligence and learning as you go and constantly improving. So you need to do that over the course of sometimes 20, 30, 40 years. Well, nobody ever thinks they're going to be old, but you are someday, and you're going to want to retire someday. And you're going to want to have the resources and flexibility and freedom to retire someday. No one ever thinks it's going to happen to them, but it does happen. And to live comfortably in retirement, we got to start investing our money early. The benefits of investing at a young age are definitely time. Now, younger people may not have big salaries at their age of life, but they hopefully will keep growing as we get older. But you guys have time. Young people may not have all of the answers and experiences that an older adult might have, but nobody knows all the answers. And the best way to do this is invest when you're young, plan ahead for retirement because it's going to probably happen for you. The time is what builds your investment. And young people don't have a lot at risk right now. Here's what I mean. I'm older, I have a family, I have a spouse, I have a mortgage. I have a lot on the line where young people are likely not to have too many obligations right now. Not many people are relying on your income right now. So why not take a little bit of your income and just try to invest, learn as you go. That's the best way and sometimes the only way to learn. Well, it's very intimidating to start investing at a young age because we don't know where to begin. We just don't have a lot of knowledge and experiences yet. But personal finance and learning how to invest is like a lifetime learning opportunity. So I would think at a young age, the best thing to do is maybe start a Roth, R-O-T-H-I-R-A.
Mrs. Kafalis said to invest in a Roth IRA. But what is that? A Roth IRA is an individual retirement account. Let me explain that real quick. Basically, you get a paycheck and you pay taxes on that. You can then take however much you want from that paycheck and put it into your Roth IRA. Every year, that money will increase around 7 to 10%. Once you are above the age of 59.5, you can then withdraw all that money completely tax-free since you already paid taxes on it.
And go in with the mindset that you're not going to be rich overnight, but you want to develop patterns and strategies, and you want to be able to hold back and continuously fund it. And maybe in the beginning it's like hardly any money, like $20 a month. But as you learn more and more about your Roth IRA and get started, you're going to naturally want to put more money in it and make better financial choices so you have extra money to put in that Roth IRA. So my best thought would be a Roth IRA. Another great investment for young people might be to drive to the bank and open up a CD.
Time out. What's a CD? Well, a certificate of deposit account is basically just a savings account with some minor differences. Basically, you put the money into the account and you lock it away for a certain amount of years. The more time that you have it locked away, the higher the interest rate is. Once that time is up, you can then take all of that money out along with the money earned from the interest rate. So it's the same thing as a savings account, but higher interest rates and the money is locked, so you cannot get it.
They're very low risk, but they don't pay a whole lot in interest, but they will pay better than a traditional savings account. And another thing, why not the stock market? There's probably been, I would think the best stock investor started with probably just as much knowledge of the stock market as you and I have, because they learn as they go. So you got to start somewhere. Don't invest a lot of money, but get started. Only invest as much as you're comfortably willing to lose, because there's never a guarantee that you're going to make money on an investment. Well, because I'm a lot older, I've learned a lot throughout my life at different phases of my life. And when I was young enough to be working but still living at home, my dad actually basically took me kicking and screaming to talk to a financial advisor, and because of him I started a 401k. So I have a 401k. I love tinkering with the stock market. I don't plan, I mean, my attitude about the stock market is I'm not planning on being rich. That's gambling. But I am planning on picking a certain percentage. Like if the bank pays you 1%, maybe I'll try to pick 3%. Cash in on my 3% and try again. I'm not a very gutsy, risky investor, but I do like to dabble on a small scale, and I just set small goals and safe goals that I feel comfortable with, and I go from there.
My goal of this documentary was to inspire more young adults to start investing. If you're under the age of 18, unfortunately, you can't start just yet. However, you can start learning. I'd recommend taking the personal finance class at Seneca Valley. It has a lot to offer, and I think it would benefit a ton of people. If you're over the age of 18, just remember what Mrs. Kafalis said. Never invest more than you are willing to lose. Thank you all for watching.
Next up tonight, we have Emily Lopez, who takes a re-examination of the Pearl Harbor attack and how that can be relevant to us today, too, about coming together.
At first, I didn't believe it. You did not believe it at first. Well, after that period left you, then what did you think about it? Oh, I'd say it was one of feeling of fury and anger that we had been betrayed. That you had been betrayed by the peaceful negotiators in Washington at the time that the actual attack did take place. Yes.
I think our Secretary of State must have been asleep if we were betrayed. Surely we need somebody in the Naval Intelligence Corps to kind of find out what's going on. If we didn't.
Members of the Senate, of the House of Representatives, yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, the United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
wow. Pearl Harbor starts, I mean, in the textbooks it's December 7th, 1941. However, you have to go back. In 1937, the Japanese attacked Manchuria, mainland China.
The story really has to do with Japan's lack of natural resources. Japan is an island country that is made out of volcanic rock. And it's a very young country as far as like its geology and the ground itself, which means that beneath the ground of Japan, there are not natural resources like there are here in America. They don't have oil, they don't have coal from the ground that they can get, which means Japan, in order to power their vehicles in the military or civilian, they need to get oil from other places. They also need to get coal from other places. And so in the 1930s, Japan went about invading neighboring countries in Asia in order to get their natural resources, mainly oil and coal. So what the United States began to do in the 1930s was fight back against that economically against the Japanese. One of the main places that the Japanese had invaded in order to get these natural resources was an area of China near Japan in Asia called Manchuria. And so the Japanese invaded that area in order to take it over and have command of the natural resources. But in doing so, they violated the sovereignty of the country of China, which is allies back then of the United States.
So when they expanded the mainland to mainland China, to Manchuria, we sent the Marines over to China. So in 1937, our Marines were holding the Japanese forces in check. We didn't fight, we were just holding them in check. So we're in a confrontational situation, okay? So I will tell you in 1937, all right? So everyone in the world knew that Japan was going to attack us. Everyone knew something was going to happen violently, all right? So from 1937, 38, 39, it just gets heated and heated and heated. At the same time, Germany's on the warpath. So Germany in 1939 attacks Poland. That's the start, official start of World War II. But there was a lot of issues before that. I mean, they attacked Czechoslovakia. They were doing a lot of forceful military things. So all this is going on at the same time, all right? So we're not in the war, okay? But Japan and Germany make a pact, and that is not allowed by the Treaty of Versailles.
States is not going very well because we are friends with China, whom they have invaded. Japan goes and allies themselves with Nazi Germany, and they become allies, meaning that if there should be a war, they would be on the side of the Japanese, and the Germans would be on the same side. So what ends up happening is once the United States puts this embargo in place, it makes it impossible for the Japanese to do business with American banks, with American companies, and other people that are friends with America. So the Japanese decide that they need to negotiate with the United States and try to find a way to get us to come back to working with them so that they can meet their needs. But the United States will not unless they were to abandon their occupation of Manchuria and Indochina and other places. And so we're at a stalemate. And the Japanese believe very firmly that the United States is responsible for the lack of economic success that they have because we put an embargo on them. So their plan is to take the United States out of the equation by attacking our military installation in the Pacific, which is Pearl Harbor.
From the NBC newsroom in New York, President Roosevelt said in a statement today that the Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, from the air. I'll repeat that. President Roosevelt says that the Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor in Hawaii from the air.
We will interrupt all programs to give you latest news bulletins. Stay tuned to this station.
The Jell-O program brought to you by Jell-O and Jell-O Pudding.
So when it began, you know, it was an evolution leading up to that day, and we just didn't know where it was going to be. That's all. And then on December 7th, that's when they attacked us. And it was chosen on December 7th because it was a Sunday morning, and there was a lot of Japanese in Hawaii, all right, like there is today. So the Japanese government placed spies there. So they dressed up in tourists with the flower shirts on, and they went and took pictures of all our ships and took pictures of everything. So they knew everything, and they knew on a Sunday morning we would be at our lowest personnel-wise. People would be at church or hungover, and so that was the time to attack, and that's why they did it on that day.
Pearl Harbor happened on December 7th, 1941, but the Japanese have been planning to attack for months, and they've been preparing and training their pilots. But they left their aircraft carriers around 6 a.m. on December 7th, which was a Sunday morning, and they flew approximately 200 miles to the island of Oahu. And when they got there, they started by bombing Schofield Air Force Base and Kaneohe, because that's where the airplanes were, and they didn't want the Americans retaliating. So that's kind of how it started. And then they started bombing the ships in Pearl Harbor.
On Pearl Harbor was an attempt to neutralize the United States and keep us out of their plans for invading and taking over areas in Asia so that they could get those natural resources.
Well, from what little I know about the island, it was in chaos. The immediate island of Oahu, there were civilians that were also killed. They did not have the capacity to care for all of the injured people. The harbor was on fire because of all of the oil. It literally burned for days. So they couldn't even get out to rescue anyone still on a ship or to start repairs until that oil burned off. And then, of course, the day after Pearl Harbor, on December 8th, is when President Roosevelt gave his famous speech that, that is a day that will live in infamy, and we are not going to, this is my paraphrasing, we're not going to lay down and let this happen to us. We are going to fight back.
Pearl Harbor was the spark that changed public opinion, because you went from, before that, probably 70% of America wanted nothing to do with World War II. Nothing. I mean, we weren't going to get involved. We weren't, we learned our lesson from World War I. But when they bombed us at Pearl Harbor, the next day was the biggest enlistment day in American history. 8 million boys went to enlist. They were in lines. They couldn't enlist fast enough. So, I mean, it changed public opinion immediately, because we declared war on Japan. Germany declared war on us.
States is not going to work with Japan. Japan will declare war on the United States by invading the Pearl Harbor base. Because of going after Pearl Harbor and the United States responding by declaring war, that also brings the Nazis into the picture as well, because they will then declare war on the United States because we are going to fight with their ally Japan. This makes America now fighting two wars, one against Japan in the Pacific and one against the Nazis in Europe. My one grandfather on my dad's side fought against the Japanese out on an island called Saipan during World War II, and my grandfather on my mother's side fought against the Nazis in Europe in World War II.
There were a lot of battles after Pearl Harbor. It took the United States a little time to kind of regroup and get together, but of course, I can't remember his rank, but Doolittle, he arranged a similar attack on Tokyo, where the United States took an aircraft carrier within so many hundreds of miles of Tokyo, and planes took off, and their targets were military targets. However, that at the time, radar wasn't what it is now, and they weren't really able to be precise with their bombs that they dropped, and so they did bomb civilian hospital and some apartment buildings, and they knew that they wouldn't have the fuel to fly back to the aircraft carrier. So the plan was bomb Tokyo and then fly to mainland China and just find somewhere to land, and then hope you can find friendly Chinese that will help you, and hope you find somebody who speaks English, and hopefully make it back to safety.
It was extremely significant because it changed everything in America, and it united us overnight. Like you can see how divided we are today as a country. We were united after 9/11. You know, we got patriotic and we were united, but it subsided really fast. And at Pearl Harbor, we got united and we were united. I mean, we were tight. We were very, very tight. So I think that made it very significant for our success.
I think Pearl Harbor really shows the American spirit. The Japanese admiral that planned the attack assumed that the United States just lost most of their Pacific fleet, would just give up and not fight, and then Japan could continue on taking over islands in the Pacific and expanding their territory. And he even commented that, oh no, I think we've awakened the sleeping giant. And I think that just shows the strength of the American people, that it was a time where Americans, they didn't want to be in a war. You know, they'd been isolated, especially after World War I. They didn't ever want to get into anything like that ever again. But they came together and they fought and they sacrificed so that we could win the war. And I just think, you know, it goes from all of the men who enlisted after Pearl Harbor to the children who collected metal to be recycled, to the women who went into the factories to build munitions and sew uniforms, the people who sacrificed, you know, they grew victory gardens so that their food could be sent to the soldiers. The country just came together, and I think that's the core of our American spirit, that we're going to have times in our history that are ugly, but deep down we can come together as a country and we can prevail for good. We can overcome evil.
All the time, where an American event is talked about because people lived it and they discuss it, you know, at memory time. When you're sitting around the kitchen table after a family dinner, you'll talk about the time that so-and-so remembers an event like where they were at Pearl Harbor or where they were at the Kennedy assassination. Well, those are things that are still in people's active memories because people are still alive from 1941, from 1963. But eventually the day will come where there will be no more Americans to remember World War II because everyone who have served in that war and been alive on that day will have passed on. And so this does happen. At one point, the Civil War was something that was talked about around every family dinner table because almost everyone in the country was involved in the war in some way. And so they all had personal memories and experiences of it. But now, after Thanksgiving dinner, not a single person is going to sit around and talk about the Civil War because it's not their own personal experience. So while right now we still do have people who do celebrate Pearl Harbor Day because it was something that was part of their own personal experience, the day will come when December 7th, 1941 will only be a memory that is discussed in history books, not by anyone alive.
Because of that one attack, so many other hundreds of thousands of people lost their lives in the war effort. And so, you know, that is the beginning of the United States involvement in World War II. And I really think that as American citizens, we should never forget, and we should take the time to go and study and read about what happened there and who was involved, because so many, you know, we could remember that Pearl Harbor was an attack, but I think it's really important to remember that the 2,390 people that died all had a name. They had families. They had people that loved them. They had ambitions and dreams that ended on that day. And I think it's important to remember them, to honor that memory.
Last but not least tonight, we have Nick Foligno talking about a subject that is near and dear to his heart, which is acting, and of course how acting, especially stage acting, has changed during a pandemic. And he did a fantastic job interviewing someone who is a theater owner, someone who's a local theater producer, and someone who's a Broadway star to get a great variety of perspectives.
At least I have a friend with me, weapon in my hand, a command of my men with me. Then I remember my Allahs is expecting me. Not only that, my Allahs is expecting. We gotta go, gotta get the job done, gotta start a new nation, gotta meet my son. Take the bullets, have your gun. The bullets, have your gun.
My name is Ron Carter. I'm the President and Executive Director of the nonprofit Strand Theater Initiative. That's the charity that owns and operates the historic Strand right here on Main Street in Zelienople.
My name is Steven Santa, and I am a theater director based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
I am Connor Galuli. I'm an actor living in New York City in the midst of this crazy quarantine time.
It's been extraordinarily difficult, and it's even more frustrating because up until the shutdown took place, the Strand was poised to have its best financial and performance art-wise, its most successful first quarter in its 10-year history.
Well, it's effectively stopped all theater at this time. Since March, when we went into our first kind of lockdown, the theater industry had to stop because you can't have thousands of people in the room together, experiencing something because it just isn't safe. And it's also not safe for performers to be on stage together, in close proximity, performing.
Kind of like a light switch, everything was going as smoothly as it could. There were all these whispers like there's something going on, there's this thing, there's this COVID. Everybody's like, all right, let's be a little careful, let's keep moving forward. And then, one day in March, I was working on a couple new works. We were workshopping a few new musicals. And I think I went into one or two rehearsals, and I think after meeting some of the cast, one day went by and it was just boom, we got this email that was, hey, everything's shutting down.
So initially, we were in a decent financial position to try to weather the storm. We were told 2 weeks to flatten the curve and to make sure that the hospitals don't get overwhelmed. And then, of course, 2 weeks extended into 2 or 3 months. And the first week of June was when they decided to reopen Butler County, and the theater was permitted to have 50% of its occupancy, which we were very concerned about. We weren't the least bit convinced we could hold live performances at half capacity. And we reopened with some movies, and we tried to keep things going that way. And we finally made the determination financially with some of the shows we had coming up, we could cover our overhead costs by being at 50% capacity. And we had some big tribute shows coming up like Queen and Michael Jackson. But right before we decided we were going to go ahead and do that, Governor Wolf and the state health department cut it all the way back to only being able to have 25 people in the theater.
A lot of people across the country and the world who don't have jobs because of this. You know, they've lost their income. If you think about people on Broadway, you know, they were working 8 shows a week and then all of a sudden it's just gone. And there's no timeline of when your job's going to return.
You know, I guess you can't say it wasn't expected because, you know, things were sort of happening all over and we were like, you know, in a medium where we all collect in one place, we're all pretty tight, we're all singing, we're all screaming, spit flying everywhere. You know, I guess it was, guess you could see it coming, but I don't think anybody was really expecting the scale of it. All of a sudden, you know, we didn't have a script to rehearse. We didn't have, you know, people directing us or whatever. You know, we had to do it ourselves.
Devastating for the theater. We did try to stay open, and we did stay open for films. But people would figure that we either weren't open at all, or because we could only sell 25 tickets, they couldn't possibly get a ticket to a film they wanted to see. So even though we could sell 25 seats, we weren't even selling that many tickets.
It's really easy to talk about the pandemic and be like, oh, everything sucked. I wasn't doing anything. I was depressed or whatever. Honestly, it for me, it wasn't that bad. Like around June, we were asked if we could do like a socially distanced children's class. And we sort of like, yeah, sure, we'll do like 1 or 2. And we wrote some original music and it just sort of built into this thing that we weren't expecting. So if the pandemic hadn't happened, I wouldn't have been able to, you know, experience this new thing.
Doing virtual programming, you have some different ways of looking at it. You could basically shoot a live as it's happening performance, which is what we prefer to do because we want that spontaneity. But we also realize that because it's being streamed, it gives us an opportunity to have some creativity. And
you feel so small. I see your true colors shining through. I see your true colors, and that's why I love you. So don't be afraid to let them show your true colors. True colors are beautiful, oh, like a red.
I mean, I haven't really been able to work on anything much personally. I've done a few virtual events, but I think what's been really exciting is being able to watch theater companies that are not just like taking a play and putting it on Facebook or putting it on Zoom, but they're actually figuring out a way to make it exciting and new and make it make sense in this new medium, because this is a new way of telling stories. So there's been theater companies that have been very adventurous and thinking outside of the box to really make things as exciting and new and different as they can using this new technology. And I think that this new technology will also be incorporated into live theater when we come back as well.
Today extended their shutdown. Shows will now remain dark through at least January 3rd, but the group that represents Broadway says it may be even longer before some shows open again.
And that's why I love you, so don't be afraid to let them show.
I think that everyone has been able to take this time and in this pause, sort of understand what's important to you and what you value. And there's not always value in running yourself ragged all of the time and working so hard and having to work 12 hours a day. So I think that people will be more open to advocating for themselves. I think this is just in general in the whole world, in any job you have, that people are going to be able to say, hey, you know, maybe this isn't the best way we should be doing this, or the safest way. So I hope that people will be open to having those conversations and advocating for their own health and their own safety.
When it comes to Broadway and theater in general, anywhere, I think we are in for a new wave of completely new works. I think we've all been cooped up. We've all been trying to stay creative. And I think that we are on the verge of this new renaissance in terms of productions. You know, I think that the box is really going to break open, and we're going to see theater that hasn't been done before. We're going to see new works. We're going to hear new voices finally. You know, it's going to be, hopefully it's going to be less, you know, musicals based off of movies. You know, we'll have brand new musicals, brand new concepts. I think that there are a lot of people who we're going to see shine because we've had this time to sort of digest and really look at what's important and what new stories we want to hear. So I feel really hopeful that there's going to be some really new works that hopefully aren't set in a quarantine, you know.
I think it's just being able to, you know, stay focused and continue to create, hoping that it actually can come to fruition.
It's easy. It's easy to be the downer and to say that things will never be the same. I want things to go back to normal. No, there's never been a normal. There never should be. It's all about what's next. And if we keep that positivity, that keeps the creativity, you know?
Yeah.
Thank you again for watching our films tonight. If you get a chance to talk to our filmmakers, please congratulate them, tell them what you think of their work, and we will have them all on both YouTube and Vimeo in the near future. Thank you again. We really appreciate you supporting us.